right, we are recording. So, yay! All right, so everybody who is tuning in, thank you so much for watching. I'm Coach Dana with Constantly Varied Nutrition, and I am sitting here today with the incredible Emily Bridgers, who is an amazing, amazing athlete. And so we're going to be talking a little bit today about nutritional aspect of being a competitive athlete. So Emily, I think most people, and not all of my clients follow CrossFit or anything like that, but I think it's fair and safe to say that the majority of the world knows you as a very elite competitive CrossFitter. But kind of take us back a little bit. I know you got started in gymnastics when you were pretty young. So kind of take us through like how you got involved in sport in general and kind of what your childhood looked like.
So I was a gymnast starting at age 3, so pretty much from time that I can remember, and then through college. Growing up, I did tennis, softball, swimming, all of the above until I had to pick one, and that was probably when I was about 10. And then did gymnastics only through my freshman year of college, and then had about a 4-year break from competitive athletics, and then I found CrossFit and started competing in 2011. Started CrossFit in 2010, first competition was 2011, and then didn't imagine that it would be 8 years later that I would still be going, and then decide to retire.
Yeah. So that's like your entire life. That's fantastic. How much of a role did nutrition play kind of early on in your sporting endeavors? Did any of your coaches ever talk to you about that kind of thing, or,
Yeah, I remember the first time I remember being talked, like having a nutrition talk, was maybe 9 or 10 years old, kind of like right when I started competing in gymnastics. I remember my coaches kind of sitting us all down and giving us a packet of information, and I honestly have no idea what was in that packet of information or what was said, but I think it was more or less like, you've got to fuel your body, try to eat healthy, avoid fast food, if I had to guess what I remember.
Yeah. It was so those things where you just were like, here, Mom, read this.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it was more like I just passed it off to my mom.
Absolutely.
But I feel like I was pretty lucky. My parents like feeding me real food. I mean, I guess probably a typical kid at that time. I mean, I ate cereal in the morning, which I don't do now, things like that.
Yeah.
But overall, I think I ate pretty well as a kid. And it wasn't until 8th or 9th grade that I started really realizing that nutrition played a direct role in how I performed in gymnastics. But I don't think I made the healthy connection. I think I made the connection of, I don't want to. Every gymnast is scared to go through adolescence and grow and go through puberty. Like I was literally scared to get taller because there were certain skills that I did that would affect.
Oh, absolutely.
Coming with getting taller was putting on weight, and I didn't want to do that, especially like going into high school. I just remember like consciously starting to try to limit my calories.
Okay.
Yeah.
So did it ever come when you started to make the correlation between how you ate and how you performed? Was it more so in an effort, or like, if I eat enough, I will perform better than if I don't eat enough? Or was it more so about
No, it never crossed my mind that I needed to eat enough in order to perform well.
Okay.
And sadly, that never even crossed my mind into college gymnastics. So I have no doubt that I was always eating too little.
Okay.
And it was always like, how little can I eat in order to, I guess, stay small in order to perform?
Yeah.
But I didn't really think about like the fact that I was training for 4 hours at a time and that you need fuel to do that. And I was always exhausted through school, and I always remember being starving through high school, like all throughout the day. And thinking about that is just like crazy. Like I was just starving all the time and tired, and I couldn't even stay awake in class. And it's like, well, no kidding. I was barely eating anything.
Yeah.
And training all the time.
Were you tracking your food or anything at the time, or were you eating? Like, were you active enough in trying to limit where you were really focused on kind of tracking macros or tracking calories or anything like that? Or was it just kind of like a self-restriction?
I think for a while, like maybe my sophomore year, I would write down what I ate, in an attempt to eat as little fat as possible.
Okay.
I, I, I guess I thought that fat correlated to fat.
Oh, common misconception in the media
Yeah.
today.
So yeah, I did write that down for a while, but there was no like tracking of macros. I think I would just like estimate the amount of calories that I ate every day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But that was only for maybe like a year in high school, and then I tried to just like not do that.
Well, that's a little bit of
Not
work.
be as obsessive, I guess.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. And so then that kind of continued even into college, you said, correct?
Yeah.
Did anything change?
At one point at the end of high school, my mom took me to a nutritionist that, looking back, I think she had some really good knowledge and kind of introduced the idea of eating carbs, fats, and protein, kind of like at every meal.
Yeah.
We didn't like call it counting macros, but
Yeah.
I think I kind of used her advice going into college, like these are the things I should eat throughout the day, but I think I was still eating way too little.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you notice any kind of performance increases as a result of that? When you kind of started to be a little bit more balanced?
Yeah, I think a lot of it was correlated to like how I looked versus how I felt.
Gotcha.
So like, I mean, honestly, looking back on my gymnastics career, I feel like that's like something that I did completely wrong. And I remember like I didn't never met with a nutritionist in college, but some of my teammates did, and they would like relay their info, and they'd be like, "She's told me to eat more rice and more beans," and we were like, "That's ridiculous," you know what I mean? Like we like didn't believe
Yeah.
it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And so
There was a lot of, I mean, we were a great team in college, but I think personally I had it all wrong.
yeah, hindsight is always 2020, right? If we had it, it would be amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I remember like the fall of my freshman year, we had to do like conditioning in the mornings and then practice in the afternoons. And I would just still feel like wrecked and exhausted from the sprints we did that morning because I don't think I was recovering well at all.
Yep. And you had some issues with injuries throughout your career, correct?
Yeah, I started having back pain in high school, and then it kind of continued through college. And then after my freshman year, I found out I had a compression fracture.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so when you retired from gymnastics, and it was because of that injury, correct?
Yeah, more or less. Like basically I was in pain all the time. And I was trying to be competitive on a really competitive team. And my chances of competing were really slim, and I was having to work my ass off every day to like be the alternate in the lineup. So it was like somewhat of a frustration, talking to my coach, kind of like weighing the pros and cons. And basically, yeah, we decided I needed to take care of my back. I needed to continue to stay involved with the team, but it was kind of time for me to be done.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then what was it that you did to recover from that? And not only physically, but like, did you employ any nutritional strategies to help you in recovery?
No. As far as like what I did when I was done with gymnastics is I sort of tried to become a runner.
Okay.
Like I went through this phase where I like really didn't want to be indoors in a gym. I was like, I spent my whole life flipping around in a gym. This is ridiculous. I need to get outside and just become a runner.
Sure.
Because I knew I still wanted to work out. I loved fitness. Originally when I hurt my back, I could only swim. So I started swimming for like 10 to 12 weeks. And I mean, I guess I was fortunate for my CrossFit career because I became a lot better at swimming.
Yeah.
I didn't love it, but I was like, I got to do something. I'll go crazy. So essentially, like even in high school, I would leave gymnastics practice and I would go do some extra conditioning at whether it was at Gold's Gym or go run a little extra at the park. Like I was always really into the fitness aspect of sports.
Okay.
So when I was done with gymnastics, I knew I would continue that part. But after I kind of graduated from only being able to swim, then I said, okay, well now I really only want to run. But nutrition wise, I don't remember like trying to change anything.
Okay.
I remember like being pretty scared that I would put on weight because most gymnasts do once they stop.
Well, because you go from training literally 4 and 5 hours a day to training no hours a day. And so your energy expenditure takes a massive hit.
Yeah. And then you no longer have to be in a leotard every day. So you don't necessarily see like all the little changes as they happen. And then also there was the factor of me being a sophomore in college. So I started drinking a lot more. So that was really the biggest nutrition change that I made was
there you go.
Drinking more heavily.
Your recovery strategy.
Yeah. So
recovery strategy.
So yeah, my decisions were not the best at the time.
Well, hey, I mean, we all do interesting things as sophomores in college. So, I mean, it's not like you did anything different from any other normal sophomore in college. So,
yeah.
So then you said it was kind of like a 4-year span until you found CrossFit.
Mm-hmm.
And you were just kind of doing fitness at like a Globo gym that time, or?
Yeah, so I continued running for a little while. I started doing like some 5K races here and there. And then eventually I picked back up with going to a gym, and I joined Bodyplex in Athens and would go there at least a few times a week. And so I definitely like maintained a strength base. I could always do pull-ups and push-ups and things like that, but did not do very much functional training. And then it was not until my senior year of college that I started working out in the UGA weight room again. And my friend and I, Kelsey, got introduced to CrossFit.com.
Nice.
So we tried to follow some CrossFit workouts, but we really only did like the body weight workouts because we didn't know what we were doing when it said power clean 1 1.
Oh yeah. You don't want to be like that person that just like picks up a bar and then everyone else is secretly talking about on the other side.
Yeah. I mean, occasionally we would try, and like the trainers in the weight room would give us some advice. So like we sort of got into it. But like I remember one of the first days it was like 400-meter lunge. And we're like, oh cool, we can go out on the track and do that one. And it was like, oh, I couldn't walk for 2 weeks. So yeah, that was one of my
really far
workouts. So that probably went on for like 6 months to a year. And then when I graduated, I was like, okay, I think I want to actually look into joining a real CrossFit gym.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so now, most of the time when you go into a new gym, right, you get sat down on like somewhere in between your first few days and they talk to you about paleo and they talk to you about the zone diet and that kind of thing. Did you have a similar experience when you actually started in a gym, or did you just kind of bypass that part because you had an athletic background before that?
No, I mean, in that 3 or 4 year gap where I was doing fitness, but also doing college pretty well, I was pretty unhappy with like my body image. I had definitely put on some weight and was just like more or less like bloated, if I had to describe it. Like my face looked puffy, my body looked puffy, but I still had like a good aerobic base and a good, strength base because I had continued to work out. But like I was not happy with how I looked, or confident. So yeah, I joined CrossFit, and then I would say within a few days I had heard about paleo, but then probably within a month our gym had held a nutrition seminar.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, so I went, and we talked basically about paleo and about zone and about combining the two.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Zone paleo.
Yeah.
I've heard of that
Kind of
too.
eating like paleo and zone. But I never did zone because I was like, I don't know, this is confusing. So I did consciously try to start eating a more paleo diet.
Okay.
So I stopped eating bread, but I never stopped eating dairy. So like I didn't commit fully, but
Yeah.
enough to where I started to feel better about, I guess, like how I looked. And I mean, I never really gave much thought into how I felt performance wise, but
Okay.
when I started CrossFit, I was seeing so many like performance gains really quickly and strength gains and stuff like that. I mean, I was already hooked there.
Yeah.
But I definitely, saw a difference in my appearance as well.
Okay. And then you started competing about a year in. When you started competing, did there ever start to become a little bit more focus on making sure that you were quote eating to perform? Or when did that ever, if at all, kind of come into play for you?
Yeah, honestly, in 2010, 2011, 2012, those seasons, there was not a whole lot of focus on it at all. Ben was already my coach, but he kind of had to coach me from a distance a little bit. There's a little bit of drama involved. But I mean, I was eating more consciously than I was before, but there definitely wasn't like all right, I ate this much today. How did I feel in my workout? Or I'm going into competition. How do I need to fuel myself? There really was not that much thought into that. It was more like I personally felt like I felt fine all the time. But yeah. I mean, looking back, I remember training in the mornings and then coaching gymnastics in the afternoons. And there's a lot of days where I would be really foggy in the afternoon coaching and just like exhausted. And I think it's definitely because I was barely eating any carbs compared to what I should have been.
Yeah, absolutely. And that generally tends to kind of be an issue when people hop on like the paleo train or a quote unquote clean eating kind of a situation. They will eliminate most starchy carbohydrates and they'll think that the only carbs they're allowed to have are vegetables, and that will, plummet intake overall, which will then plummet energy overall and could possibly see performance decrement and such.
Yeah.
So that was through 2012.
Yeah, so like 2011 and 12 and 13, I went to regionals, but I narrowly missed the games. And people just like didn't talk about nutrition as much back then, but I guarantee like, going into day 3 and my body's completely wrecked, like it was not recovering at its best at all. So, I think that there was just like development as an athlete that needed to happen, but also nutrition wise, I was pretty clueless.
Yeah. But then those were all still years that you went to the games on the team, correct?
2013 was the year I went on a team.
Okay.
So Ben and I started dating at the end of 2012. And that was kind of the first time where he really started to help me like eat more regular meals, like eating 3 bigger meals a day rather than just like grazing throughout the day.
Yeah.
And then he kind of started to notice like, oh wow, she does not eat enough. So, that was the first time that I had really like made food in bulk on a Sunday to have throughout the week and things like that. So I noticed the difference there, and I liked the fact that like we ate breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So that was kind of like the first change. And then after I made the games in 2014, I think each year we kind of like we would like try something different. Like, all right, well, let's see how you do with eating more rice. And I was like, oh, I feel like much better. So,
rice versus something else, or rice in addition to something else?
In addition to like adding rice at lunch and at dinner
versus
whatever I was doing before. So basically the first time that we experimented with adding in more carbs.
Yeah.
You know, getting off the paleo mindset, I guess.
Absolutely. Okay.
Yeah, that was probably like 2014/15. And then 2016 was the first time I started working with a nutritionist.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. And how did that experience kind of change your mindset about nutrition and about how it could help you in your performance?
I mean, I was just always resistant to like track my food again because I didn't want to go. I guess the only experience that I had was like in high school when I would write down what I ate.
And it was a negative experience. Yeah.
So I just didn't want to like feel like I was obsessing over food. And I mean, I honestly like didn't love tracking it, but I experienced like why it's beneficial to eat consistently every day and like and see your macros and like see that if you eat 40 grams over what you're supposed to have in your fats, that you feel really sluggish the next day and things like that. So like it was very helpful to kind of like write down, this is what I ate and this is how I felt.
Yeah.
As a result.
Nice.
Like I had never done that before.
And how long did you work with her?
2 years. 2 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so that kind of was did you track the whole time, that whole 2 years, or were you able to do it a little bit more intuitively after a little short period of time? Or did you?
I tracked the whole time, but I would like a month after the games, I would like, not track for that month
Absolutely.
We got to the point where I stopped tracking on Saturdays because I just told her like it stressed me out more than just like having one day where I didn't track.
Yeah.
So yeah, I didn't track macros as strictly as some people do, but I also like didn't totally like blow out my whole week in that one day either.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I have found that some people are better able to do that than others, right? Like some people, if they don't track, then it is very easy for them to either undereat significantly or overeat significantly or, if they're not paying attention to it, literally not eat at all, right? And have
I definitely found that if I didn't track, it was really hard for me to eat enough protein, and it was really easy for me to eat too many fats. And then I don't know what else I was going to say on that note.
Well, it's funny that you bring that up too, because food preference actually is a real thing, right? There are people who generally tend to kind of skew themselves a little bit more towards fats, and there are some people who generally tend to kind of skew themselves a little bit more towards carbohydrates. So that is something that nutrition coaches and dietitians and nutritionists need to be paying attention to as well, right? Like if, let's say you have a member of the gym come to you and they're, kind of looking for some nutrition advice and things of that nature, and you kind of are looking at a log and you see that they're eating 300 grams of carbs every day, but they're only getting like 50 or 60 grams of fat and like 100 grams of protein.
Yeah.
Clearly that's their choice. But then you could look at someone completely different and their fats are going to kind of have skyrocketed and it'll go from there.
Yeah.
And that, funnily enough, is kind of genetically based too. So
yeah.
and
I feel like, I don't know if this is like how I was raised or what, but like if some people had like a plate of cookies sitting in front of them, they would literally eat the whole plate. Whereas I'm like, okay, cool, I got one. Like, I don't know. I just feel like I have like self-control when it comes to stuff like that. So like I consciously just eat a little bit more moderately when it comes to eating sweets or like eating something that you would not deem as very nutritionally dense.
Okay, there you go. I like that.
Yeah.
Not good versus bad, but more nutritionally dense versus less nutritionally dense. I love that.
Yep.
So 2 years working with that person, that takes us to last year, 2017, or was that through this year?
Yeah, it was through the games this year. Yep.
Okay.
Perfect. I guess really I only worked with a nutrition coach like for the 2017 and 2018 season.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And so those of people watching who don't know, this year at the games, you incurred a different injury.
Mm.
You chose to retire from competitive CrossFit as a result of that injury. Are you fully recovered today? I think you and I talked about it last month, but yes.
Yeah. Well, so basically I had already made up my decision to retire before I even got injured.
Oh, gotcha.
But then the injury just happened to be like a, bad experience that happened at the last games. So at the time everyone's like, 1 more year. I'm like, I've already made this decision. But am I recovered? No. The answer is no. My ankle is about 90%.
Okay.
So I feel really good about that, like how my body has responded to that acute injury. But I had been dealing with like quite a few little overuse injuries just from beating my body down for 8 years. I really wasn't one of those people who gave myself much of an off season. And I mean, it definitely took its toll a little bit. So I'm dealing with a little bit of like shoulder pain and knee pain that I'm, trying to sort out.
Yeah.
But definitely like volume is way down. And so I'm hoping that those things kind of clear up over the next few months.
Start to rectify themselves.
Yeah.
So obviously now that you are officially retired, I mean, you own a gym, so you're still coaching a significant period of the day. So still very active in terms of your non-exercise activity.
Yeah.
But what does your training look like today? I mean, is it just literally 60 minutes and you'll, do some stuff, or what's a typical training day for you right now look like?
Yeah. I mean, I feel pretty good if I get in 60 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah. Like today, so Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, we have like a women's circuit class. It's not even a CrossFit class. And I took that today. And it's basically like you move probably more than you would in a CrossFit class. And it's like just less strength based. So I kind of am enjoying that right now because I have no real interest in like loading a heavy barbell, because what I would think is a heavy barbell right now still isn't very heavy. But with that being said, I still try to jump into our CrossFit classes at least 3 days a week.
Nice.
And then, there's been days more often than I would like that it becomes like 7 o'clock at night and I haven't done anything. And so I just hop on a bike for 20 minutes. But that goes along a little bit with like me trying to rest my shoulder. And so like there will be a workout with pull-ups or muscle-ups, and I, instead of just like completely scaling it, I'm like, well, maybe I'll just ride the bike today. So there's definitely been like, it's been a little tougher than I thought in terms of like just jumping into class and like not having an ego. Like I definitely still want to be the fastest person, which I feel like I need to learn to let go of.
Yeah. I feel like that's going to take a little bit of time though, right? Like you're right in the grand scheme of, if we take into consideration the length of your career versus the length of time that you have now been retired, right? Like you can see how, I mean, so a greyhound is always like, a running greyhound is always going to want to run, right?
Yeah.
Like a thoroughbred horse is always going to want to run. Like if they hear a snap or something like that, they're going to want to take off.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it absolutely makes sense that you're going to hear the beep on the clock, 3, 2, 1, and you're just going to want to do what Emily does and just go. And I can totally see that it would take some getting used to. So, I mean, you know.
Well, and like I've done a few of these little like qualifier workouts with other people doing them. And like, I don't know, some of it's been good, but some of it's just like, okay, I was not ready to do like 50 overhead squats right now. I hadn't even done one overhead squat since the games, but I don't know. It's been interesting, but like the bottom line is I still do something active every day.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like even just the fact that like before, when I was training twice a day, I would go home and try to like recover as much as possible before going back to the gym to train again and coach. And now I'm like, oh, I can go on a 30-minute walk with Bart and that's okay. And I can enjoy it. So just like more things like that, where I'm just like getting outside or, jumping into our recovery class or whatever it might be.
Yeah, nice.
I'm still like, I'm in the gym a lot, so.
Well, yeah. Generally tends to be where you kind of live away from home, especially when you own it. That's where I am right now. I think, that's all the stuff left over from our competition.
Like I haven't done one handstand push-up since the games. Like I just did my first overhead squat. I haven't tried to snatch anything over like a 55 pounds. Like I haven't really had that motivation. Well, I mean, I also had the ankle injury, so that was like
exactly. So
almost like a little bit an excuse, but I don't know. We'll see when I think like maybe the first of the year, I'll try to like build some strength numbers back up a little bit.
Yeah, let your body have time to rest and recuperate and stuff. Yeah. Good. How has your nutrition changed since your volume has decreased as well? I mean, it was actually a better question. Science tells us that we get our recovery from two things, right? We get our recovery from sleep and we get our recovery from food. Has there been a thinking for you that to recover from 8 years of pretty extensive and hardcore competition, that intake should remain the same as if you were competing and if you were doing 2 sessions a day, regardless of whether or not you are doing those 2 sessions a day?
Yeah. Well, I actually spoke with you probably like 2 or 3 weeks after the games, and you told me to not change anything for at least 6 months. So, I mean, I've been trying to like pretty much eat the same. I stopped tracking on MyFitnessPal like right after the, and I have not entered it in one day.
Good.
But like I feel like I learned a lot in those 2 years of tracking, that I'm pretty like aware of what I'm eating. There's definitely days where I don't get enough protein still at all. And generally I'm just like not as hungry. I don't like leave the gym like, oh my gosh, I need carbs right now.
Yeah.
So I probably am eating a little bit less, but not significantly less. And I'm just trying to like eat. Also like right after, actually the day after the games, I got an email that my meal company was going under. So
good.
I was in a 2-year contract and now I no longer have meals. So that was kind of like a change right when the games ended, that I would no longer like pick up my meals every week. So it's actually been nice because Ben and I get to cook again. So we've just been like making an effort to cook more vegetables and like have meals ready for dinner. So yeah, I feel pretty good about how it's gone so far.
That's awesome.
But I'm hoping like, I don't know how much strength I've really lost at this point because I haven't tested anything. But I don't think that it's like I have to eat significantly less because I lost a little bit of strength. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, when you're looking at a muscle memory kind of a standpoint and stuff like that, like, yes, there will be strength losses, but I don't think that it would be a significant amount, right? Because your body's not going to catabolize your muscle mass that quickly, especially if you're eating adequately. So, I mean, there's going to be individualized per the person. So, I mean, there's no way to know until you test, but like getting you healthy and injury free and niggle and pain free and stuff is going to be, kind of like first and foremost. And then, like you said, I mean, maybe if you continue to kind of rest and recover and not do those things that are going to aggravate those places, then maybe first of the year. Yeah. I mean, that's another month and 14 days away at this point. I mean, a month and a half is a really long period of time to give your body that kind of recovery. So
the one thing I have done, like, I guess pretty differently than the games, is like, I was trying to be pretty conscious of not eating as many fats, especially when I was like out to dinner. But like I've eaten a lot more bacon than I did for a while, and like I've ordered quite a few more burgers and things like that. So like I think I am somebody who naturally craves more fat, and I haven't really figured out where my balance is as to where, like, I don't know. I guess that's something I'm still working through is like,
Yeah.
what will my macros be post training when I don't need that many carbs in order to perform?
Yeah. And that's kind of one of those things where every single thing that you've done nutritionally throughout your life is going to play a role, right? So there is recovery debt that must be paid, right?
Yeah.
I think that was kind of one thing that I might have mentioned in our initial conversation back months ago, was that like, you have to take into consideration how many years you were really highly competitively active and under fueling, which means under recovering. And so your body is going to be expecting that payment eventually, right? And it will, that could be one of the reasons why you do crave more fat, right? Fat is amazing for recovery in a lot of aspects. Yes, we know that carbohydrate fuels performance, it fuels brain function and things of that nature, but fats are incredibly important for hormonal health and health of our central nervous system in general. And so that could be your body's way of telling you exactly what it needs in order to get the recovery that it needs. So that's good that you're listening to that aspect too, and not trying to kind of shut it down.
Yeah, I would say that was like one of the harder parts for me about counting macros is like there were days where I felt like much hungrier than others, but the idea is that you hit, the same numbers every day.
Yep.
When before I was really just trying to listen to my body, like, am I hungry or am I not?
Yep.
So I think now I'm trying to do like a mix of like listening to my body versus like knowing that I need to get in a little more protein right now, even if I'm not super hungry.
I think that's a great idea. That's a very balanced approach as well, right? And I think that's where a lot of people generally tend to kind of miss the mark too, is that we become so hyper focused on one thing versus another thing that we then, so many people I talk to have no idea like what a true hunger signal is. Or even like how to pay attention to how their body's feeling and use those things to kind of dictate what's happening both in their nutritional strategies and in their life. Like, I'm the first person. I actually sent a client home from my gym one time because she walked in for the 9 o'clock. She's a dedicated 9 a.m.er, and she's also a professional baker. And this one night she came in and apparently there had been a cake debacle. And so she was up literally all night trying to fix this particular cake that was going to be delivered the next day. And she'd only gotten 2 hours of sleep.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm like, nope, you are going home right now. But I need to get a workout in. And I'm like, no, you don't.
Yeah.
For you to get a workout in right this minute is actually going to be making you worse.
Yeah.
You need to go home and you need to sleep. She was like, and she looked like Eeyore, like you could literally see her drop.
Okay. Yeah. No, it's true though. Like I've always valued, well, at least the past few years I've valued sleep a lot. So that's
you have to.
Same,
yeah. I mean,
like all of our 5 a.m. people kind of joke that they've never seen me at 5 a.m. But I'm like, I was still at the gym last night when you guys were in bed. You know what I mean? My day happens later than your day.
The worst thing, there was a couple of weeks ago where I was filling in for another coach. I think one of my business partners was out of town or something, and I coached the 7 p.m. on a Wednesday night.
Yeah.
And then had to come right back in the next morning to open the gym at 5:15.
That is rough.
That is rough because, you have to think, if you're coaching for several hours, I'm not going to have a plate of food and be eating while I coach. That's just,
right.
That's Coach 101.
Don't do that. Yeah.
Yeah, please don't do that. And for those of you who are watching, if you go to a gym where they do that, leave and come to one of our gyms.
Yeah.
So you've got to think, class gets done at 8. I'm probably not leaving the gym until about 8:30 when you're talking about cleaning up, making sure everything's put away. Some people
after. It's at least 30 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. And so then I'm like, okay, I've got to get home. I've got to take a shower. Then I've got to put all my food together to eat. And then I still have to eat. And then best case scenario, you're talking 10 o'clock at night. Then, okay, thankfully, I'm super blessed. I live literally 9 minutes from my gym.
Yeah, we live like 3.
Oh, even better.
Yeah.
I mean, if I could teleport here, it would be even better. But still, but even then, I'm waking up at 4:40 in the morning to get up, put clothes on, like grab my stuff and walk out the door. And so that does not leave you a whole lot of sleep time. And I'm one of those people that I probably could nap if I forced myself to nap.
Yeah.
But I'm not, to me, like if I'm up, I may as well just be up.
Yeah.
And so it's just kind of one of those horrible things. But yeah.
I mean, I was pretty good at napping when I was like training all the time, but I mean, and I still will take an occasional nap, but it's kind of like I'll lay down and be like, what am I napping for? Like, I don't have to like, you know what I mean? Like, I try not to feel bad about it, but it's a little bit of like, I don't really need to nap in the middle of the day type thing.
See, and right now all of my coaches are telling me that I do need to be napping. And I'm like, okay, find me a time in this schedule where I have time to nap. But,
yeah.
but that I love this. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to come and chat with me about all things food and training and being a competitive athlete and stuff. And so,
I mean, I think the main like takeaway is that, nobody really ever has it completely figured out. Like food is a very like huge thing, and recovery, there's so many factors. And so like, I don't even know, I mean, the last few years I felt great performance wise, but, my nutrition looked completely different than all the other games athletes. I still think I ate significantly less than some people, but that's just how I felt the best.
Yeah.
So I would just you should never compare yourself to what anybody else is doing.
Yeah, that's true.
And I'm
funny question though. Is that something
I'm still sort of experimenting with what I'm doing, but
absolutely.
Yeah.
Because your nutritional needs are going to change, right? They've changed now. They changed from when you were a gymnast to when you were a CrossFitter. They changed when you were just a regular CrossFitter to a competitive CrossFitter. And then they've now changed that you're a retired CrossFitter, but then you're still, in a gym and stuff.
Yeah.
Is nutrition something that you girls would talk about, like at competitions and stuff? You were together and all that kind of stuff. Did you sort of what each other did?
I mean, especially like in the last couple of years, I just feel like it became more of a more prevalent thing for people to talk about. I mean, even the guys, like, they started to realize like, oh, we need to be talking about this because this is the only way. There comes a point where there's only so many ways that you can continue to get better, and the little things mattered.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Cool that you guys would talk about that stuff too. Well, because you never know too. Well, I mean, thankfully I've been blessed enough to kind of see some of the back inner workings of all of that kind of stuff, of the competition aspect and stuff. But in my one experience at the games, like regionals and Wadapalooza and stuff, completely different from the games. Like most people, when I was there in 2013, there wasn't a whole lot of like, joking and hanging out and shooting the shit back and forth, back behind the scenes and stuff. So it always appears on the outside. And I think it would probably appear even more so on the outside for people who don't know kind of what it looks like behind the scenes, that everyone is very like blinders on, not talking to anybody else, and sort of no longer friendly, even though you're friends all outside of the competitive aspect.
No, it was never like that. We always talked about like, what are you doing at your affiliate? What's working for your intro program? What's working for your nutrition? Like, what do you tell your clients for nutrition? Like everything. I mean, at least for the people you were close to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I like everybody after the games every single year was like, tell me all the gossip. Who was the awesome? Who did you hate? And I'm like, it's not really like that. It's just like, you kind of relate to some people more than others, but
oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
that's true. But I very much appreciate your time today, so I'll let you get back to doing all things gym and recovery and all that. But
thanks for having me.
No problem. I'll let you know when this is ready and up on YouTube and stuff, so you can be like, hey guys, look at what I did today, and sort of promote it and stuff, and all of that kind of thing. But I'll make sure that we get you tons of shout outs on social media and stuff too. So
Okay.
Again, I hope everything's going well. And if there's ever anything you need, just let me know.
Okay, thank you.
All right, talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.